Hello everyone, my name is Jenilyn Nainesa and I am here to talk about feminist therapy. To formally start my report about this, I will be showing you a brief timeline of feminist therapy. So here it is, the timeline for the feminist therapy. So in the 1960s, feminist therapy has its roots in the feminist movement. So this was the time where there were a lot of discriminations about women not having equal rights and so forth. So it continued in the 1970s where the research on gender bias and the establishment of the Association for Women in the Psychology in the Association for Women in Psychology or AWP fueled the feminist therapy movement further. So it started in 1960s and continued into the 1970s. So in the 1980s, several feminist theories emerged to test traditional theoretical frameworks. So the feminist therapy diversified to include issues such as eating disorders like bulimia, anorexia nervosa, trauma, abuse, and body image. So, since the 1980s, feminist therapy has since expanded to include work with individuals from a wide range of marginalized groups who experience a variety of mental health issues. So, as a therapeutic model, feminist therapy is influenced by a number of philosophies like Rogerian, Adlerian, and Gestalt therapies, and etc. So, to formally start my report on the feminist therapy, I will be defining it. So, I got this definition from Brown, 1994. He defined feminist therapy as the practice of therapy informed by feminist political philosophy and analysis. It is grounded in multicultural feminist scholarship on the psychology of women and gender. So it leads to both therapist and client towards strategies and solutions advancing feminist resistance, transformation, and social change in daily personal life. It also tackles relationships with the social, emotional, and political environment. So now we come to the principles of feminist therapy. So there are 6 principles of feminist therapy. So the first one is that the personal is political. So this principle is based on the assumption that the personal or individual problems that individuals bring to counseling originate in a political and social context. So for females, this is often a context of marginalization, oppression, subordination, and stereotyping. So acknowledgement of the political and societal impact of an individual's life is perhaps the most fundamental thing that lies at the core of feminist therapy. So although feminist therapists emphasize social context, they also work from a biopsychosocial perspective. So attending to the intersection of the biological, psychological, and social aspects of people's lives. The second principle to feminist therapy is commitment to social change. This one's a very important principle. So, in this principle, feminist therapy aims not only for individual change but for social change. So, uh, the first principle tends to be a little uh, smaller in scope, and the second one is bigger because it includes the society in general. So feminists view their therapy practice as existing not only to help individual clients in their struggles, but also to advance a transformation in society. So direct action for social change is part of their responsibility as therapists. It is important that women who engage in the therapy process, may it be clients or therapists or both of them, they must recognize that they have suffered from oppression as members of a subordinate group and that they can join with other women to right these wrongs. Subordinate to who? When we say that they have recognized that they have suffered from oppression and members of a subordinate group, it means that women or females are subordinate to men. That's what is referred to here. So the goal of this principle is to advance a different vision of societal organization that frees both women and men from the constraints imposed by gender role expectations. So one part of this is during those times, women should stay at home and just be plain housewives. Women aren't allowed to work, and men should be the one who needs to earn money and provide for the family. But nowadays, you can see that both men and women can do that. So this principle uh, has a vision of counseling. It tends to move away from the traditional focus on change from within the individual out in the realm of social activism, distinguishes feminist therapy from other historically accepted approaches. Next, third principle is women's and girls' voices and ways of knowing are valued and their experiences are honored. So women's perspectives are considered central in understanding their distress. Traditional therapies that operate on androcentric norms compare women to the male norm and find them deviant. So much of psychological theory and research tends to conceptualize women and men in a polarized way. When we say polarized way, complete opposites. A goal of feminist therapy is to replace patriarchal or objective truth with feminist consciousness, which acknowledges diverse ways of knowing. So women are encouraged to value their emotions and their intuition and to use their personal experience as a touchstone for determining what is reality, not just because they are subjected to believe this belief, but because they have experienced it for themselves. So their voices are acknowledged as authoritative and invaluable sources of knowledge. The valuing and facilitation of women's voices in or out of therapy directly counteracts the often forced silence of women and contributes to an ultimate change in the body politic of society. So the fourth one is that counseling relationship is egalitarian. So what do we mean by the word egalitarian? So egalitarian means relating to or believing in the principle that all people are equal and deserve equal rights and opportunities. So attention to power is central in feminist therapy. Feminists recognize that there is a power imbalance in the therapeutic relationship. So, they strive for an egalitarian relationship, a relationship with equal rights. So, keeping in mind that clients are the experts of their own lives. So, the intent of this principle is to shift power and privilege to the voices and experiences of those who come to counseling and away from those who deliver it. So there's an open discussion of power and role differences in the therapeutic relationship, which helps clients to understand how power dynamics influence both counseling and other relationships, and also invites a dialogue about ways to reduce power differentials. So finding ways to share power with clients is essential because feminist therapists believe all relationships should strive for equality, mutuality, or when we say mutuality, it is a condition of authentic connection between the client and the therapist. So the fifth principle to the feminist therapy is a focus on strengths and a reformulated definition of psychological distress. So feminist therapy has a conflicted and ambivalent relationship with diagnostic labeling and the disease model of mental illness. Such psychological distress is reframed not as a disease but as a communication about unjust systems. When contextual variables are considered, symptoms can be reframed as survival strategies. So feminist therapies talks about problems in the context of living and coping skills rather than pathology. So if a formal diagnosis is used, it is arrived absolutely in collaboration with the client. Last but not the least, the last principle of feminist therapy is that all types of oppressions are recognized. Um, in this principle, clients can be best understood in the context of their social-cultural environments. So, feminist therapists acknowledge that social and political inequities have a negative effect on all people. So, feminist therapies work to help individuals make changes in their lives, but they also are committed to working towards social change that will liberate all members of society from stereotyping, marginalization, and oppression. So diverse sources of oppression, not simply gender, are identified and interactively explored as a basis for understanding the concerns that clients bring to therapy. So framing clients' issues within a cultural context leads to empowerment, which can be fully realized only through social change. There you have it. The six principles of feminist therapy. We have the personal is political, commitment to social change, women's and girls' voices and ways of knowing are valued, and their experiences are honored. The counseling relationship is egalitarian. When we say egalitarian, it means equal. A focus on strengths and a reformulated definition of psychological distress. And lastly, all types of oppressions are recognized. So there are 7 therapeutic goals in the feminist therapy. So the first one is empowerment. Uh, Second, valuing and affirming diversity. Third is striving for change rather than adjustment. Fourth is equality. Fifth, balancing independence and interdependence. Sixth is social change. And the last one is self-nurturance. So those are the 7 therapeutic goals of feminist therapy. Techniques and strategies in feminist therapy. So the first one is empowerment. So according to Enns and Byers-Winston in 2010, they pointed out that many of the strategies of multicultural feminist therapy are part of the general umbrella of empowerment. So, this enables people to see themselves as active agents on behalf of themselves and others. So, at the heart of feminist strategies is the goal of empowering. So, feminist therapies work in an egalitarian manner. When we say egalitarian, it means equal. So, feminist therapists work in egalitarian manner and use empowerment strategies that are tailored to each client. So, that's empowerment. The next one is self-disclosure. So, feminist therapies use therapeutic self-disclosure in the best interest of the client to equalize the client-therapist relationship, to provide modeling, to normalize women's collective experiences, to empower clients, and to establish informed consent. So that is for self-disclosure. The third one is gender role analysis. So a hallmark of feminist therapy is that gender role analysis explores the impact of gender role expectations on the client's psychological well-being and draws upon this information to make decisions about future gender role behavior. So some feminist therapies prefer the term social identity analysis because it reflects the importance of assessing all relevant aspects of a client's identity. This may include multiple memberships in both socially disempowered and privileged groups. So gender role analysis begins with the clients identifying the societal messages they received about how women and men should be and how should they act. So the next one is power analysis. So power analysis, it refers to the range of methods aimed at helping clients to understand how unequal access to power and resources can influence personal realities. So together, if they work hand in hand, therapists and clients may explore how inequities or institutional barriers often limit definition, self-definition, and well-being. So the next one is bibliotherapy. Nonfiction books, psychology and counseling textbooks, autobiographies, self-help books, educational videos, films, and even novels can all be used as bibliotherapy resources. So reading about feminist perspectives on common issues in women's lives like rape, battering, sexual harassment, may challenge a woman's tendency to blame herself for these problems, thus creating or having justifications about what happened and eventually helping them in creating their own personal views based on what they have read in those uh, books. The next one is assertiveness training. So, by teaching and promoting assertive behavior, women become aware of their interpersonal rights, transcend stereotypical gender roles, change negative beliefs, and implement changes in their daily lives. So, in here, the therapist and the client consider what is culturally appropriate, and the client makes decisions about when and how to use the new skill of assertion. The next one, reframing and relabeling. Reframing means it includes a shift from blaming the victim to a consideration of social factors in the environment that contribute to a client's problem. In reframing, rather than dwelling exclusively on intrapsychic factors, the focus is on examining societal or political dimensions. By reframing, you may come to understand that depression and anxiety are linked to social pressures to behave within heteronormative gender role expectations and to develop an appearance that matches these culturally and societally prescribed ideals. How about relabeling? So in relabeling, it is an intervention that changes the label or evaluation applied to some behavioral characteristic. So it can change certain labels that a person has attached to his or herself, such as being inadequate or socially unwanted, because he or she may not conform to ideals commonly associated with feminism. An example might be that he or she is encouraged to talk about herself as a strong and healthy woman rather than being as a selfish or too masculine type of person. The next one is social action or social activism. So it is an essential quality of feminist therapy. So clients need to become more grounded in their understanding of feminism, and therapists may suggest to clients to become involved in activities such as volunteering at a rape crisis center, lobbying lawmakers, or providing community education about gender issues. So a person might decide to join and participate in organizations that are working to change societal stereotypes about beauty expectations for women or social groups that affirm people who they identify with in a variety of sexual and affectional orientations. Last one is group work. Group work is also a strategy or a technique. So group work became popular as a way for women to discuss their lack of voice in many aspects of society. So historically, group work has been used for both consciousness raising and support. So consciousness raising groups initially provided an avenue for women to share their experiences of oppression and powerlessness. So that's it for techniques and strategies. So we have finished discussing the strategies and techniques that are used in feminist therapy. So we will be, the last slide of this report will be about the limitations of feminist therapy. Um, so feminist therapies do not take on a neutral stance since in the name itself it's feminist, so it's focused more on the therapy of women, although at some point um, there were uh, stuff that mentioned equality. Pero since men are on that part of the less subordinate group, the focus is on women. So the next one is therapist self-disclosure and the sharing of personal and professional beliefs may overly influence the beliefs of a person in treatment. So an individual who has not experienced something firsthand, he or she may form an opinion of it based on the therapist's personal conviction or bias. So instead of the client developing his or her own belief and stand over a certain point of view, he or she may be biased based on the therapist's own convictions. The next one is the focus on unexamined choices of the person in treatment may put the therapist at risk for imposing choices or decisions that the individual is not ready for. For example, a therapist might push a person in treatment to leave an abusive partner too soon, putting the person at risk. So, what are the risks to this? Um, when trying to leave a something or a person, we have to take into consideration a lot of factors. One of these factors must include ensuring one's safety. So we don't know if, since that person is said to be abusive, what are the actions that that abusive person will take on our client. So we should plan it very carefully, and then consider all factors to ensure the safety of our clients. So the next one, a strong focus on environmental factors may detract from the ability of a person in treatment to take personal responsibility for problems. For example, those who believe society is to blame for their depression may be less active in seeking appropriate treatment. So, when we try to blame uh, uh, other factors or other when we try to put the blame onto others or onto other reasons, we tend to take less responsibility for ourselves. So it's not a very good uh, it's not a very good thing that you put the blame on other reasons, like society. When the society is to blame, you tend to take less responsibilities for yourself, tend to take less efforts in trying to make yourself better because you have others to blame. So it's a big no-no. So that's it. Those are my listed limitations for feminist therapy. That's it, you guys. Thank you for watching this video of mine about feminist therapy. I hope you learned something from this video. And again, thank you so much for listening and watching.